In a completely unexpected turn of events, out of literally nowhere, Alduron released a short teaser on the official Path of Titans YouTube channel introducing the very early version of nesting. After so many years eagerly waiting to get just a glimpse of this oh so desired mechanic, we finally received our very first piece of information about it. And not only we now have a somewhat vague idea on how the feature works in a general sense, we even got the opportunity to test it out ourselves not once, not twice, but in 3 very short test branch sessions. The nesting mechanic is of very high importance in both Path as a game and the genre it belongs to. Its contribution to the gameplay loop is extremely valuable. It provides an extra stepping stone to the player's progression with the extra benefit of it being deeply immersive. After all, we are all, for all intents and purposes, role-playing as animals trying to survive in a ruthless environment alongside dozens. Procreation and everything related to it only enhances that experience, hence why every other dinosaur survival game has their own iteration of this feature. In fact, ironically enough, despite many considering this to be the best title available in the genre, Path is the only one who still doesn't have nesting, which is even more unfortunate when we consider that other systems like quests can potentially make nesting something much greater than what we have in its competitors. A long time ago I made a video discussing that exact possibility. You should check that one out first if you ask me. And now that we at last have something tangible to dissect, I can tell you that my suggestion may not be as far-fetched as it looks. In this video I will explain how the feature functions alongside my personal impressions and feedback on the mechanic's current iteration, because there is no better time to do so than now, and there are indeed some things worth pointing out. If you ever played any other game of this genre, the Isle or Bizarre Bermuda for example, nesting in Path will feel right at home. Though, suffice to say that this is a work in progress, so a lot about it can change in the future. In fact, even during these 3 tests, in the mere span of a few days mind you, some alterations were already made. And I'm not talking about bug fixes or anything of the sort. I'm talking actual changes or additions to the mechanics itself based on player feedback. So not only we can expect an actual difference between now and its eventual release, that difference will be impacted by our input. Never take that for granted, people. Make sure to appreciate the developers for doing this. They deserve it. Alright, now for what really matters here. Nesting. Here's how it works. Upon reaching the subadult growth stage on your dinosaur, you will get access to the system and begin your lineage. Nests can be built by any dinosaur regardless if it is male or female, and are placeable anywhere on the map with very minimal restrictions. Once a location is picked, the owner must then gradually build it by gathering materials in the vicinity. Each species has its own nest with a specific set of resources required for its construction, and while looking for a place to build it, a UI prompt will appear at the top left corner of the screen showing the materials needed as well as in abundance levels in the surrounding area. This means that certain portions of the map will be a lot easier to make nests than others depending on the dinosaur, while still allowing them to be built anywhere if you're willing to put up the extra work, which I think it is a simple and yet effective way to do it. In addition to that, certain parts of the map are now designated as nesting grounds. These unique regions have a surplus of resources designed to promote certain dinos to more frequently breed there, with the intention of spreading the player population across the map in a more organic manner. With the nest construction finalized, players can then fully interact with it through the nest menu. Here you can see all the important information about it: its health, the materials used to make it, hunger and thirst levels, and of course the egg slots themselves. We will get into those in just a second. Below, there are a number of actions the owner can make. Buy and place decorations just like in home caves, to either make your nest prettier or to conceal it more, invite other players to hatch as babies, or adopt already living ones. Adopting in particular is actually a rather useful feature. Any dinosaur belonging to your diet group who is adolescent or younger can be adopted. And once you invite someone for adoption, the baby will be teleported to your nest just like Waynestones work. This small detail will make meeting with friends a lot easier and quicker, and honestly pretty smart inclusion to the nesting mechanic if you ask me. Although it can lead to some very silly situations like let's say, your rhino summoning a baby Rex in the middle of the ocean. Now here's where Path of Titans differs from its competitors when it comes to breeding. Unlike the other games, Path's nests do not have any major requirements in order to start producing eggs. In fact, the moment it's built, they will immediately and automatically start producing eggs even if you're not laying on them. You can speed up the process by filling the thirst and hunger storages and being in close proximity to the nest, but even without those, the production will still happen. Every nest has a maximum capacity of 5 egg slots, no matter which dino you choose. Each slot is slowly filled over time one by one, and once one of them is available, the nest owner can then send invites to other players who will then wait a few minutes inside the egg in some sort of gestation period and then be born as babies of your species. Keep in mind that both the offspring and the adopted dinosaurs will not be automatically added to your group. You will still need to do that manually. Currently, the whole process provides both the parents and the babies with several bonuses. The nests themselves allow us to change our abilities just like in home caves, as well as serving a minor supportive role by boosting healing, stamina regen and even damage within a small radius. As a hatchling, right after birth, you will get a series of quick quests basically teaching you the basics and how to interact with the nest, essentially serving as a short tutorial. In the event of a baby dying, which we all know it's going to happen a lot, instead of spawning in a random location like usual, players will respawn back to the nest, which is a nice touch. And lastly, this update introduces an adjacent mechanic named Family Tree. At the moment it is almost a purely visual thing, showing your family's genealogical tree as expected, with the only tangible effect being the fact family members grow faster near their parents. It's a decent bonus, but I believe it has a lot more potential beyond a mere growth boost. Though it will most likely gain an extra depth in the future anyway. If you want an even more in-depth overview of how nesting works, check out Veloci's video. He did an amazing job. It's worth a watch. Now, as I stated before, this is a heavy work in progress, so nesting will certainly change quite a bit, and my impressions are taking that into account to a certain extent. But at the moment, I'm a bit on the fence towards the direction they are going with it. There are a lot of things done right in its current iteration, don't get me wrong. If anything, the Isle could take notes in some aspects. The resource gathering component is simple, but it still influences the player in putting some level of effort, especially if they wish to build it in an unfavorable location. And that is a good thing. It accomplishes 3 aspects at the same time. It adds an extra activity to do, obviously. It generates a tiny amount of investment from the owner by having to put the right amount of time and work into making it, and it provides both of those while still giving players the agency of when to nest, where to nest, and how long they take to build it. These components are not necessary, but immensely improve the breeding mechanic in these games. That was something every nesting actually did great. The problem with it, and one of the big reasons why it's completely dead right now, is the excruciating maintenance after its construction. Having to endlessly keep the temperature at a specific point basically forcing players to solely focus on that task and nothing else for an extensive period of time, was a massive detriment to that feature. And Path did well in not making the same mistake. For many people, protecting the nest on its own is already enough maintenance to deal with. It feeds that sensation of responsibility while still allows players to interact with the rest of the game without being penalized for it. Less demand in this particular aspect is a good design choice, and I'm glad Alderaan picked this route. Another thing nesting in Path is better than its main competitor is the overall advantage of the activity itself. In the Isle, parents not only don't get any benefit from nesting, it's actually the polar opposite. They have to sacrifice time, food, and water just to keep the nest active, and the only reward for doing so goes exclusively to the offspring, with the players that put all the work in the first place getting literally nothing positive out of it. In Path, just making a nest provides parents with minor conveniences and bonuses like regen boost, ability customization outside of home caves, and even damage increase while near it. The main purpose of breeding is obviously making babies. You shouldn't nest with the main purpose of getting something else out of it. But these small positive perks that come with this mechanic are an extra incentive for adult dinos to do it more frequently. And even though they are completely unnecessary, their existence is a welcome one. At the very least, we are not purely being punished for doing so. The foundational components of this system are well designed and put together. For the most part, it is even a better iteration than the Isles, and the extra mechanics like family trees, adoption, and the conveniences that come with them only make Path's nesting even better. But there are some things I find confusing and even concerned. Let's take the lesser things out of the way first. The hatching process is not the greatest. The eggs are completely invisible the entire time and only appear when they are hatching, which only takes a few seconds at best. Being able to see how many of them are ready just by looking at the nest would not only be more immersive, it would also remove the hassle of constantly going to the nest menu just to see if we can invite someone or not. And this is quite strange because we already saw nests in the game without that problem before. So I'm not sure if that's not present due to technical issues last minute, or it's truly a design decision. But in case of being the latter, I believe I speak for the whole community when I say that the former is much better. The egg itself is ridiculously large as well. And it's not because the babies are too big. No, if anything, you could put 2 or 3 of them inside that thing just fine. I assume this was done for better visual representation, especially from further away, but I don't personally think it needs to be done to this extreme degree. Ironically enough, the trailer that no one wants to talk about has a better animation and size scaling than this. Even without a fancy animation, seeing the eggs on the nest with that size more or less would be perfect. Although, to be fair, on the 3rd test they did reduce its size as stated on the patch notes. Something that unfortunately I can't show since as of right now I can't find any footage of such, so I'm not sure to what extent they were in fact downsized. But credit where credit is due, they already changed it, which is very promising. One pet peeve I have, and this is not all that big of a deal, it's more annoying than anything, is having to still invite babies to your group. I'm not sure if it's this way, again, due to technical limitations or it was just not implemented yet, but it's annoying. Come on, I nested them. They should be automatically put in my group. I understand if it's in a situation where the group is already full and you keep inviting more people. Yeah, in that context it makes sense. But outside of that, it's just extra unnecessary menu pressing. Far from being game breaking, but I hope something can be done about it. My biggest criticism above everything else, however, by far, and one I wish to see addressed the most, is how the egg process works. Having nests autonomously generate eggs without the direct intervention of the parents creates a massive disconnect between them and what they built. It is extremely immersion breaking and makes them feel more like egg factories rather than a place players dedicate their time and energy into birthing and raising their offspring. It completely detaches itself from the players, which I believe it's not beneficial at all for the game. Fortunately, this quote-unquote problem, because this is clearly intentional, I just so happen to not like it, is very simple and there are multiple ways to solve it. Primarily, just making it so eggs only form if a female belonging to the nest's family is laying on it. I believe that already happens to some degree. If you lay on it, it speeds up the process, but even if that's the case, both genders can do it and it's still not a requirement, it's just a boost. The best approach, in my opinion, is adding a server option where each community server can pick either the default version or the suggestion I made. This way, Alderaan still has the mechanic the way they intended it to work on official servers, while giving the option of a more immersive iteration of it for players that are looking for that kind of experience. And since the difference between the two is not as big as it sounds from a development perspective, even though it's still a bit of work, I think the devs would do it if the fans requested it enough. And that's the end of it. Despite the semi-negative feedback from my part, nesting in Path of Titans has a very good foundation. And it's just great to finally see this mechanic after so many years waiting. And overall, it's pretty good. All it needs now is some more refinements and extra options, which I'm hoping to see once the update comes out. And it will be perfect. A huge thank you to my Patreon supporters for supporting the channel and the content I create. If you wanna join the ranks, you can do so for only $1 a month. The link will be in the description. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and opinions down below, join our Discord server, engage with the community, and I hope to see you all next time.